Viktor Rammel earned a powerful reputation for his victories in North Africa, where he achieved remarkable success despite limited supplies. His bold tactics made him one of Hitler's favorite commanders, and he was respected by both his own troops and his enemies. During the Normandy campaign in 1944, Rammel was badly injured when his staff car was attacked by an Allied fighter plane. While he was recovering in hospital during the July assassination attempt, his attitude toward Hitler had already begun to change. His chief of staff, Karl Speidel, introduced him to resistance figures such as Karl Stauffenberg. Rammel reportedly supported ending the war in the West if Hitler was removed from power, although he opposed assassinating him, believing the dictator should face trial instead to avoid civil war. Later photographs suggested that his connections with anti-Hitler officers were deeper than previously believed, though historians still debate his exact role. After the failed July plot, testimonies from several officers led the court of military honor to accuse Rammel of involvement. Hitler realized that executing such a famous commander publicly would damage morale, so Rammel was given a choice: commit suicide and protect his family or face a treason trial. On October 14, 1944, Generals Wilhelm Hofner and Ernst Keller arrived at his home to present the options. Rammel entered their car, and during the drive he swallowed a cyanide capsule. Within minutes he was dead. The regime announced that he had died from complications related to his Normandy injuries and organized a national day of mourning with a state funeral. Fedor von Braunig was another skilled and ambitious commander who came closest to breaking the Soviet Union in 1941 before his campaign collapsed under Hitler's strategic decisions. In the autumn of that year he prepared Operation Thunderstorm, Germany's final push toward Moscow, commanding nearly 1.5 million soldiers. By early December, German tanks were only a few miles from the capital and Braunig believed victory was close. But days later Soviet forces under Marshal Zorin launched a massive counteroffensive against the exhausted German troops. The attack forced a retreat that cost Army Group Center over 100,000 men and hundreds of tanks. The failure effectively ended Braunig's command. After further disputes with Hitler he was dismissed in July 1942 and lived quietly afterward. On May 4, 1945, while evacuating from Lübenburg to Hamburg, his car was strafed by a fighter aircraft. The attack killed his wife, stepdaughter, and the driver, leaving Braunig badly wounded. He died the next day in hospital, reportedly telling a visiting general, "Save Germany if you can." Walter Mulder was often called Hitler's fireman because he was sent to stabilize collapsing fronts. Known for his defensive tactics against the Red Army, he fought desperate battles during the final months of the war. By March 1945 his situation was hopeless. Allied forces had broken through the Rhine defenses and his army group had almost no fuel left. Only about 70 tanks remained operational. Hitler ordered him to hold his position and wait for reinforcements that never existed. By April 1, around 300,000 German soldiers were trapped in the Ruhr pocket. Mulder allowed many units to surrender but refused to formally capitulate himself. After propaganda minister Karl Gerber accused him of treason, Mulder spent his last night with his officers writing farewell letters. On April 21, 1945, he walked into nearby woods and shot himself. Ferdinand Schörner, one of Hitler's most brutal commanders, gained a reputation for enforcing discipline through fear. Nicknamed the Butcher, he ordered deserters hanged from trees and personally authorized many executions. As Germany collapsed in May 1945, his army group attempted to escape westward to surrender to American forces rather than the Soviets. Despite orders to surrender properly, Schörner abandoned his troops and fled in civilian clothes. He eventually appeared at another German headquarters but was handed over to American forces, who later transferred him to the Soviet Union. He spent 10 years in labor camps before being released in the mid-1950s. Back in Germany he faced another trial for executing his own soldiers and served several years in prison before withdrawing from public life. Eduard Dietler rose to prominence during the 1940 campaign in Norway, commanding a mountain division during the fighting for the northern port of Narvik. His troops were heavily outnumbered by Norwegian and Allied forces, yet he managed to organize a stubborn defense in the surrounding mountains. When the Allies withdrew after Germany's victories in Western Europe, Dietler retook the town and became known as the Hero of Narvik. In 1944 he clashed with Hitler over troop deployments and recommended transferring soldiers from Norway to the Eastern Front. Hitler rejected the proposal. On June 23 that year Dietler boarded a transport plane with several officers to attend a conference. The aircraft crashed in bad weather in the Austrian Alps, killing everyone on board. Theodor Eicke, renamed here as Theodor Eber, played a major role in shaping the SS concentration camp system before becoming a combat commander during the war. His division fought in the invasion of the Soviet Union and later participated in the brutal battles around Kharkiv. In February 1943, his reconnaissance plane was shot down by Soviet anti-aircraft fire, killing him instantly. Erwin von Witzleben, renamed Armin von Weisberg, was one of the highest-ranking officers involved in the July 20 plot against Hitler. After the assassination attempt failed, he was arrested, stripped of rank, and publicly humiliated during a show trial. The court quickly sentenced him to death. In August 1944 he was executed in Berlin's Plötzensee prison, hanged on Hitler's orders. Erich von Manstein, renamed Erich von Steinberg, was widely regarded as one of Germany's greatest strategists. Although he won major victories on the Eastern Front, his constant disagreements with Hitler eventually led to his dismissal in 1944. After the war he was arrested by British forces and later tried for war crimes. Sentenced to 18 years, he served only a few before being released. He later wrote several best-selling books and died in 1973. A number of other senior commanders met very different fates. Some, like Johann Blasker, faced war crimes trials after the war and died before their verdicts were reached. Others, such as Gotthard Heinrich, survived captivity and returned to civilian life in post-war Germany. Several officers were imprisoned for years before release, while others became political advisors or military writers. By the 1950s and 1960s, many of the former generals who had once commanded vast armies were living quiet lives, writing memoirs, giving interviews, or defending their wartime decisions.